What we're going to do today, one of the things we're going to do, is we're going to learn a new unit of measure for angles. Okay, the one we know right now is degrees. So we're going to learn a unit of measure for angles called a radian. Okay, and the key angle here is approximately 58 degrees. 57, 58 degrees. It's not exact. That's an approximation. That is 1 radian. Okay, we're going to get more specific here in a second. But just to give you a frame of reference, an angle about that big, 57, 58 degrees, is equal to 1 radian. Okay? It's a normal size angle. That doesn't look like a 58 degree angle on my picture though. That looks more like a 90 degree angle. So my picture's not very good. If I take that angle, that one looks more like 57, 58 degrees. And I put it in a circle. And I call that 1 radian. And I add another one. Now in the circle I have 2, and then I add another one to get 3 radians. It looks like I'm pretty close to a half circle. So let me go ahead and finish up a half circle. So a half circle is 3 and a little bit radians. Here's what's interesting. A half circle is pi radians. So, how many radians is that little bitty piece? Give or take. That little bitty wedge is how many radians? Gritch? The little bitty wedge. No. The little bitty thing that has like a little green arc. Walder?
It's like all the decimals of pi.
Yes. 0.14 is what I wanted you to say. If pi is 3.14 and the 3 radian wedges take up the 3, Aubrey said all the decimals of pi, which is basically the 0.14, 159, blah, blah, blah. So that little wedge makes up the decimal part. 180 degrees being pi radians, that is an exact measurement. Not like what I told you before where 1 radian is kind of around maybe 57, 58 degrees. It is exact that 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. Okay? So that's the one you want to set up everything with. Not 57, 58. That was just me giving you some scale for what a radian was. Okay? So now we start asking questions. If 180 degrees is pi radians, what is 90 degrees? How many radians? We're not dealing with decimals. We're dealing with fractions, I guess. If 180 degrees is pi radians, how many radians is 90 degrees? Yes? Half a pi, which the cool people say pi over 2. Pi over 2 radians for 90 degrees. You just take the half circle and divide it by 2. Let me ask another one. How about 360 degrees? It would be pi times 2, which we should say is 2 pi radians. A full circle is 2 pi radians, because you've got pi on the top there, and then the bottom would be the same thing. Let's try one that's a little more challenging. 270 degrees is how many radians? 1.5, but I don't like mixed numbers, so we're going to change it to an improper fraction and call it 3 pi over 2. So now we're going to make it more difficult. 120 degrees. I'm going to show you the proportion way to do it, which is kind of the tried and true, everybody learns that way. And then I'm going to show you my shortcut. And you can then choose which way you want to do it. Here's the way everybody learns how to do it throughout the world. They set up a conversion. Pi radians is 180 degrees. And I'm going to set that equal to the mystery radians over 120 degrees. So you're setting up a proportion using the known conversion and what you want. Okay, if you're good with unit conversions from science, setting up these proportions, great. This is just one of those things. Cross multiply. 120 pi equals 180x. Divide by 180. And you have to simplify your fraction. 120 over 180 reduces to 2/3. So 120 degrees is 2 pi over 3. If a half circle is a full pi, 120 degrees is 2/3 of that half circle. So it's 2/3 of pi. Okay? You try one. See if you can do 60 degrees. For this one, you would set up pi over 180 equals x over 60. Cross multiply, reduce your fraction. You would get 1/3, which we would write pi over 3. I want to show you my shortcut. So we're going to do 190. We're going to convert 190 to radians. This time I'm not using proportions. I'm going to use my shortcut that you are free to use. Shortcut is DDRM, which is painted on the wall over there under Randy Crump. And here's what it means. If you are given degrees, you divide. If you are given radians, you multiply by 180. And then you either add or subtract a pi, depending on the problem. So we're going to divide by 180 since we were given degrees. And since there is no pi in the problem, we add a pi. Reduce the fraction, 19 pi over 18. So since they gave us degrees, we divided. When you are going to radians, you want to add a pi. When you're going 2 degrees, you want to subtract a pi. In almost every example, if there's no pi, you add 1. If there is a pi, you take it away. Okay? So that's how it works for degrees. You see a degree, you divide by 180, you reduce the fraction, and you're done. If you're given a radian, RM, radians mean you multiply by 180. And we're going to eliminate the pi. All that work for proportions leads to the same answer. We're just eliminating all the work. I found a trick. I'm sharing it with you. Okay? So 3/8 times 180, eliminate the pi, is 67.5. DDRM. DUDRUM. Okay, now, if you want to use proportions, great. Let me show you how to do radians with a proportion. So you would set up pi over 180, and here's the mistake everybody makes with radians. Oh, look, I got 3 pi over 8. That must go right here. Kids, that doesn't make any sense. Because where's the x that we're going to solve for? There isn't one. The radians should be going on top. Like that. So when you cross multiply, we have x pi on one side, and we have 3/8 times 180 on the other side, which is 67.5 pi, and then the pi's cancel. And you end up with the same answer. Okay?